Is Japan at it again? From August the 12th to the 14th, just as we commemorate Japan's World War II surrender 79 years ago, former Japanese defense minister and now leadership hopeful Shigeru Ishiba led a cross-party parliamentarian delegation to China's Taiwan. The delegates, with a focus on quote-unquote security and diplomacy, met with the island's leadership and former leadership, where they emphasized the need to quote-unquote stand shoulder to shoulder. The visit sparked serious protests from China. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs warned certain Japanese politicians not to forget the lessons of history and to stop sending wrong signals to separatists. The visit came against a rising tide of high-level official interactions between Japan and Taiwan in recent months, reneging on Japan's repeated commitments not to have official relations with Taiwan. So what are they up to? Why such timing? And is this the shape of things to come? I'm pleased to be joined from Taipei, Taiwan by Joanna Lei, former Kuomintang Party legislator. In the studio by Rong Ying, Senior Research Fellow at the China Institute of International Studies, and from Washington, D.C. by Surabh Gupta, Senior Asia-Pacific Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. The warmest welcome to all of you. So, Zhu Fenglian, let's start with Joanna. Zhu Fenglian, who is China's spokesperson on Taiwan issues, she once said that Japan has reasserted that Japan has a historical responsibility regarding past crimes it committed in Taiwan. Why is this context important?
Well, it is critical and quintessential to remind everyone when Japan ruled Taiwan as a colonist, it committed heinous crimes with mass slaughters in Taiwan. During the 50 years, it also involved Taiwanese in their military actions across the Asia-Pacific, using Taiwan as a war base. So all these crimes are underplayed by the current Lai Ching-te government. They instead touted the glorious time Japan ruled Taiwan and touted the strong partnership. So it is important to remind everyone that Japan has committed heinous crimes on Taiwan.
Well, Japan surrendered for the Second World War, but it also ended its occupation of Taiwan. So what kind of legacy has that colonization history have in today's politics in Taiwan? Why is it so sensitive when it comes to how the Japanese government is dealing with its official relationship with the People's Republic of China? Joanna?
I think it's really important to remind everyone that not all Taiwanese subjected themselves to the Japanese colonialist rule. However, the current leadership in DPP, especially those ones promoting Taiwan independence, has an extremely strong Japan tie as well as Japan identification, such as Li Denghui, Chen Shui-bian, Tsai Ing-wen to Lai Ching-te. Lai Ching-te is probably top all of them. Hence, it is important to realize that the current Taiwan independence movement has extremely strong Japan support and Japan roots. And they certainly hope that with any potential confrontation with China, Japan will come to Taiwan's aid, and they're working extremely strongly with the potential aid from both Japan and the United States.
Professor Rong, what's Ishiba's stance concerning Taiwan? In the past, when he was talking to Chinese media, he seemed to have been sending a reflective message saying Japan needs to recognize what it did to people in Asia. And yet with this visit, what can we tell about his official stance concerning that region?
Well, I think Ishiba is a Japanese politician and also I think a politician with ambition. And certainly on the question of Taiwan, he understands very well the sensitivity and the importance to the China-Japanese relationship. In the meantime, I believe he personally very much pro kind of Taiwan independent or Taiwan separated forces. So he, as a politician, he has to keep in mind the positions and the the consequences of his of this position. And in the meantime, I think personally, I think he again also for its political sort of ambition, he wanted to find a way to capitalize the positions related to Taiwan. So I think this is my understanding.
Gupta, what is the potential impact of Ishiba taking such a stance in Taiwan? Because right on the last day of his visit in the island, the current Japanese Prime Minister announced he's standing down, and Ishiba, according to the polls, proves to be the most hopeful candidate for the next Prime Minister position of Japan. So what kind of potential impact is his position on Taiwan will have on bilateral ties?
Oh, I think it will have implications for the worse and implications for, and the implications are not going to be good. Ishiba is a very conservative politician. He's not necessarily a revisionist politician, but he's a very conservative politician, and he's totally bought into this idea that there needs to be this club of democracies which need to band together and defend the order against other revisionist powers, which he labels as the Russias and the Chinas. So, I mean, the consequences and ramifications are very, very serious. He is also, like Junichiro Koizumi, he is a very politician with an independent streak. So he might take decisions on the cuff and very monumentally important decisions. So I think one has to be very careful in dealing with Mr. Ishiba and not have real expectations or hopes that there is going to be a rapprochement or a patch-up between Japan and China.
Well, whatever the change of government, what the Japanese government has committed in terms of its international obligations is ironclad. For instance, Japan has made clear repeatedly in several political documents and agreements over the decades, Japan has made clear its commitment on One China. For instance, the 1972 Sino-Japanese joint statement says that the government of Japan recognizes the government of the PRC as the sole legal government of China. The government of the PRC reiterates that Taiwan is an inalienable part of the territory of the PRC, and the government of Japan fully understands and respects this position. Joanna, can anybody make the argument that a parliamentary visit is not official ties, as we have seen this with the Pelosi visit to Taiwan, where she kind of played with the words, whereas in effect she, as head of the speaker, is one of the highest ranking official of the US government. Is that the same argument that the Japanese delegations are trying to make?
Well, in any democracy, a Congress represents the will of the people. So you cannot make such a distinction, number one. However, it is also important to know that Japan has gradually shifted its position. It has violated the post-World War order restriction imposed on them in terms of Japan not to go beyond the 4 islands. It has worked in concert with Biden's alliance building strategy. In a recent interview, they even claimed that they will be the peacekeeping force for the Indo-Pacific, for free and open Indo-Pacific, following the rule of law. So you can see a rising Japan with its own ambition, gradually moving away from its commitment, such as what you have disclosed.
Indeed, the second half of that sentence, which I haven't quoted, is that Japan also vows to uphold the Article 8 of the Potsdam Declaration, which precisely underlined what Joanna was talking about there. But there have been a series of Japanese official interactions with Taiwan authorities in recent months, to say the least. For instance, Taiwan and Japanese Coast Guards conducted a joint drill off the coast of Japan in mid-July. It's believed to be one of the first. And a few weeks later, over 200 councillors and representatives from across Japan visited Taiwan during a so-called Japan-Taiwan Exchange Summit, and the list of such activities goes on. So, Mr. Rong, what's cooking? Why the rising tide of official interactions between the two sides?
Yeah, I think the Chinese side, the Chinese government made it very clear that the Japanese government had a solemn commitment, solemn pledges with China on the question of Taiwan, and only unofficial, non-official, and practical changes or interactions can take place. And unfortunately, I think to the indignation of the Chinese side, which I think the past few years I've seen repeatedly sort of visits like that under the name of the so-called name of unofficial or non-governmental interactions. The Chinese certainly has expressed strong oppositions and making representations with the Japanese side. And I think it is very dangerous in the context of what we are talking about. These moves would be perceived or regarded not only are kind of going back the pledges, solemn pledges of government, which relate to the trustworthiness of a government, but more importantly, it could lead to the understanding that the Japanese, there are some Japanese that are supporting Taiwan independence or Taiwan separated movement. That could be again regarded as a support, not only interfering in Chinese internal affairs, but also in supporting the separation of Taiwan from mainland. That could have serious, grave consequences for the bilateral relationship and also for the peace and the stability of the region.
Finally, this is not isolated. I mean, the cross-party parliamentary delegation visiting Taiwan from Japan. Actually, it seems to be a larger picture going on. We know IPAC, which is an anti-China grouping of parliamentarians from different countries founded in 2020, just had their so-called summit in Taipei in July. And Nakatani, a former Japanese defense minister, is also co-chair of the IPAC, and he is also among the Ishiba entourage. Very quickly, Supta, do you see the Japanese visit being part of a bigger picture that's, under the baton of the United States in containing China here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's how I see it. As Japan playing its part as of a larger group of provocative democracies in trying to tip the scales against China in any Taiwan-related contingency and trying to deter China and basically going against its own principles and its statements of the past. You talk about Nakatani Gen. Again, he used to be a defense minister, and he was the first defense minister who went to Yasukuni in 2002 or 2003. And just yesterday, we've had the new defense minister, the current defense minister, also go to Yasukuni, Minoru Dara. And so, Japan has been playing this game ever since Mr. Abe came back to power in about 2012. They're trying to build this coalition, and they're trying to say, oh, China's provoking this, China's provoking that, let's try to deter China, and they're trying to. But I think in the process, they are placing themselves in a situation where we might have an outbreak of war which will not serve Japan's interests as an aging nation and a nation with a lot of debt and not doing terribly well. So I think they're playing a dangerous game.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think this is the way it's going to be for the next couple of years.
We have to leave it there, unfortunately. Many thanks to my guests, Joanna Lei, former KMT Party legislator, Rong Ying from the China Institute of International Studies, and Surabh Gupta from the Institute for China-America Studies.